Get ready.
Yeah. Y'all ready for some live shit? Welcome.
Hello, welcome back to the Good Music Show. This is your co-host Julius with my fellow co-host Danny Robbins.
Hello.
And we're here with another 3-album run episode. I hope you guys enjoyed the Bruce Springsteen episode, as we're going to be back on probably the other side of the spectrum sonically with the one and only legendary and long gone but not forgotten J Dilla, the amazing talent from Detroit that revolutionized production multiple times. Each era of rap that he was like active in shifted once he decided to shift, where he pulled off something that like acts like Kanye West would become like, you know, very much the norm of, which unfortunately he's still kind of the norm because it just hasn't really been a producer to really have that much of an interest to experiment with it sonically the way that either of those guys have done. And we're going to be talking about his 3-album run of, unfortunately, probably the only 3 albums he released. The 3-album run we're looking at today is his debut album, Welcome to Detroit, which dropped in 2001. The very, 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 very famous Donuts, which dropped in 2006. And his final and technically posthumous or posthumous?
Posthumous, yeah, I think people pronounce it
posthumous.
Yeah.
Post Malone Hummus album, The Shining, that also came out in 2006. I mean, I'm sure I've already spent so much of this podcast talking about Dilla and how amazing he is and how much I love him and his work, where what I'm very, very excited about is to be able to finally talk in a very extensive detail about him with my good friend Danny, who I'm sure had a wonderful time getting into this stuff here. Where
I did.
You want to share like any like just, you know, opening thoughts that you got from this journey?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely like being led into a giant playground. Picture a kid going into the biggest playground they've ever seen in their life, and you could just spend hours like trying out everything because, yeah, not only is there tons of, well, there's obviously, as you just mentioned, just the 3 solo proper albums, and then you've got all of his work for other artists, you know, some of which we've already talked about, like his contributions to Tribe Called Quest and the classic De La Soul, Stakes is High, and then all the other songs he produced. But also, you know, his various beat tapes, collaborations, and just, you know, apparently there's just, you know, bootlegs out there. I don't know how much you know about this, but it sounds like the real heads are trading, you know, sharing links and stuff to all the stuff that's unreleased too. Is that the case?
Yeah, like something that was really awesome when people would go outside and talk to other people was that beat tapes were a very regular thing that would get passed among rap fans across several regions, where the most popular case for is probably the Screw tapes by the legendary DJ Screw, where his house was basically one of the biggest music stores in Houston, Texas, where once he had a new tape, there would just be cars lined up trying to get this Screw tape. Wow. And those tapes to this day are still being traded and still being like, you know, released online, where there's still so much new DJ Screw mixtapes that are to be found. And Dilla had a similar situation where these beat tapes would be bootlegged and passed around as well. There's a lot of Dilla still left in the vault for them to release, but there's stuff that's not even in the vault that is owned by others. But yeah, where there's definitely many bootlegs that are gonna like live on. That's I'm glad that you got to hear about some of that, because it is kind of fascinating, because it causes like Dilla to become this like phantom in a way of just like how much stuff is there just still beats being made that are being passed from the afterlife to here, because
right,
it is always just crazy to like hear Dilla be there. You're like, when did he even make this? When would this have happened? You know?
Right. Yeah. And, you know, like people are still using, you know, whatever they got it, they're still using it. Like I was looking through his production credits, and there was even a XXX Tentacion song that had a Dilla credit. So
yeah, it's very timeless, and I hope it remains that people just keep using Dilla beats, because I mean it's very much a legend that hasn't even like found its peak of what kind of artists could utilize it, to be honest. Where honestly I can't wait for us to find a Dilla beat that sounds like a fucking Cardi song that he made in 1993 somehow.
Yeah. But yeah, I definitely had a fun time. No, not only listening to these albums, but also, you know, checking out the tangentially related songs that, you know, appeared on different projects, like, you know, songs that are on donuts that were used in other projects and all that. So it was definitely a fun time.
Yeah, this is gonna be a real fun episode for y'all, especially if you love Dilla like we do here. And yeah, so let's get it going. I'm gonna be working from some notes that I wrote up. So if I sound like I am reading something, that's probably why, but I'll do my best to keep it sounding genuine for you all.
Yeah, keep it 100.
You don't pay us, so I don't really care. Anyways,
Yeah.
the story of Dilla for me starts in February 2006 when he passed away. And I found out through a bumper on Adult Swim, which pretty much introduced me to so much of my favorite producers, like not just Dilla, but Madlib and Flying Lotus. And it could be a false memory, but I do generally remember witnessing this bumper and being able to hear Time, the Donut of the Heart, for the first time ever. And it's like a memory that I'm very grateful for because it's very much something that like it started like my interest in music, to be honest. Because like when I was a kid, I didn't really care that much. I didn't really have that many like musicians. I was like, yo, that's the coolest dude. That's cool or whatever. Like I just really only cared about cartoons and video games. By the time I got like my first iPod, which was like 2008, Dilla was one of those artists I immediately was filling that thing up with. Thankfully, I was able to like immediately figure out piracy and like pirating music, where I didn't have the money to buy donuts. I wouldn't even know where to buy it because I was like literally young. I was like 10 maybe. So I didn't have a way to go to wherever disc or CD stores out there. So, you know what I mean? So I was able to like find donuts and I was just immediately obsessed. Like it was literally my forever companion when it came to like middle school musically. Like those were the songs that were constantly playing in my head when I was doing homework, going to school, leaving school, and all of that, you know? And a big reason why I picked Dilla for this episode is that for a lot of people, their journey in understanding him ends with donuts. They don't really go much beyond it. They don't really go into like the credits that he has on other albums and with other artists like Danny mentioned earlier, where to me, the story of Dilla is very, very incomplete. It barely even really starts if you just only experience donuts, because you're only really getting like maybe, I'll say at most like fucking 10% even of what this guy was capable of as an artist, because you're not getting like you're not getting the like R&B songs he was doing. You're not getting like the real hard bangers he was doing. You don't even get like his personality that wasn't necessarily a Tribe Called Quest, but obviously more in line with Two Live Crew, you know, where you're not really getting Dilla with just donuts. And the biggest thing I really want to do for people with this episode is like insist that like these two albums are worth checking out. And there's also just so much more Dilla that is worth checking out as well. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think the real key to unlocking that, you know, the truth in that statement is Slum Village, listening to Fantastic Volume 1 and 2. Because I spent a lot of time with these three albums that we're talking about today, and not to get too off track from those to try to focus, but after I spent a lot of time with those three albums, I checked out Fantastic Volume 1 and 2, and I was like, this is a game changer. Like, that's like just like a whole nother level to Dilla that you don't, well, you get, but it's like expanded on way more.
Oh yeah, and like I was even tempted to make Fantastic Value 2 one of the like albums, but I very much wanted to like bring more attention to Welcome to Detroit specifically, since it's like the solo album of his. Because the great thing about Fantastic Value 2 is that while like you do get to hear some of the craziest beats that are so sonically different from what's going on Donuts, it's also made great through his bandmates T3 and Ba 10, who are like just as exceptional in rapping like he was. Literally, if you haven't listened to like Fantastic Value 2, but you like Donuts, just stop listening. Cut it off. Go to Fantastic Value 2. Just listen to that. Because like that was like honestly the second album of Dilla's I got obsessed with when I was younger, where I was like as young as 15 trying to make people listen to Climax and then be like, isn't it crazy the song's about a threesome and Dilla's rapping in triplets? Like, do you understand the fucking genius that's going on here? And I was like, man, turn that off. I want to listen to Kid Cudi.
That's it. Yeah, I was trying to pull that out, my impression.
I got a lot of nerve talking this to you, right? I'm straight up, this should make sense to you. Girl, you ain't got a front, don't be acting dumb. Hey, if you got the good, then I want some. I'm trying to get down, this ain't no lie, yeah? But I ain't never fucked with a menage a trois. It's 3 like the stripes on the Adidas.
But yeah, no. And like, and another thing that I really want to do with this episode, which I complained about constantly already, is Dilla's new image as this godfather of lo-fi beats.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I said, already gone into it so much. It's not lo-fi. I don't think he even really knows what lo-fi is anymore, because lo-fi isn't really even possible with the stuff we're using to make beats with.
Yeah.
Where Dilla alongside New Jabez, like, they weren't really guys who were just like, they weren't really musicians who were just like, I gotta make it however I can. Like, they were both very obsessed with making sure their shit sounded as clean and concise as possible. They wanted that freshness to it. Where Dilla didn't even really want to like try to like emulate a cassette style until like on his last album, The Shining, where he was influenced by the sound that like Madlib was bringing in on like Madlib, where it sounded like dusty and stoned and bugged out, you know? But I was still not even consider those aesthetics to be lo-fi, to be honest. And I think when you hear Dilla's music and you listen to Donuts not trying to force it to sound like it's lo-fi, you're going to kind of realize how ridiculous that title is. Because while I'm glad that like at least it's making Dilla important to young producers, these young producers still aren't really even like hearing the stuff that Dilla was capable of outside of Donuts and understanding how to even like process those beats to make those beats sound more unique.
Right.
Because the thing is, you got to really be as good as Dilla to be able to properly rip off a song from Donuts. Like, it's just, he's the only producer who figured out how to make that album work or that style work. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. And yeah, the whole lo-fi thing it's weird because it's almost like different context now, because like you said, there's a difference between making something and then putting a lo-fi filter on it, or, you know, whatever that means, lo-fi filter, like the various techniques that to make the crackle or whatever. And then like actually using like the technology of the time to its fullest capabilities, which is what Dilla was doing. And like, yeah, maybe sometimes you have like a hiss or a pop or something in there that you're like, oh, that's the lo-fi, but that's just like,
that's just the record that Dilla is sampling from.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it wasn't like he was like, this is missing a vinyl crackle. Like, it's literally just a record he got, which he usually just like, you know, crate dig whatever used records he could find at whatever store he was at.
Right.
You know?
Or like if you think of like the mics they were using at the time, like they couldn't just order a $60 high quality microphone off Amazon. They just had to use what they had. So like you kind of hear that. I kind of thought of it as like a garage sound on Fantastic Volume 1, like where they're kind of still figuring things out and testing out new songs.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But the mic quality isn't like, you know, obviously that of a professional of the time. So it's just two different things.
Which I also clarify, where I'm glad you checked out Volume 1, but also we'll say Volume 1, it's like a re-release set of demos. Like, it never was really officially released, where the low quality of this is just part of that like these songs weren't even like finally mixed. Where Volume 2 is basically what that album it would thankfully become in a way. Which is why Volume 2 like sounds cleaner, it sounds more like just fresher, you know what I mean?
That's what I pictured. Like everything on Volume 1 was just like the tape that he would carry around to show people what he could do, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
What they could do as a group.
Show off what his guys could do, you know?
Yeah, not just him. Yeah.
While Dilla wasn't the greatest bandmate, as you could read from the amazing book, Dilla Time, where if you're a big Dilla fan, check out Dilla Time. It's where I'm getting a lot of like my knowledge and stories from, where he wasn't the greatest bandmate. Like he practically abandoned them on their last tour so he could go hang out with D'Angelo and Questlove, which I don't blame him. But it's kind of it's shitty. The Slum Village's story thankfully doesn't end there. They were able to like really craft a really great discography even without Dilla's sound, which they were able to like thankfully have a great collective of producers who were influenced by Dilla and also just bringing in a whole new different kind of sound where they even got like one of Kanye's best beats during his college dropout era, you know?
Okay, so the post Dilla Slum Village stuff is still worth checking out, would you say?
Oh yeah. None of it's at the level of Fantastic Volume 2, but it's all still pretty great stuff. And the member they replaced Dilla with, Elzai, who comes up later, he's just great. Like he's just one of the best like Detroit rappers, where his rapping makes up for not being able to have Dilla's amazing beats most of the time.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, that's cool. Like I thought of a interesting possible comparison for Slum Village of the band that's kind of like a super group in a way called the Flying Burrito Brothers, which had Roger McGuinn from the Byrds and Graham Parson, who is also in the Byrds, and Chris Hillman. And they made two really great albums before Graham Parsons unfortunately died of an overdose. And then
Mm-hmm.
just various other people kind of carried the Flying Burrito Brothers name for years and
Yeah.
years, and kind of just doing kind of covers and stuff like that. Like, felt like it was like you're kind of missing the key components once Roger and Graham are not in the band. But interesting kind of comparison there.
Yeah, no, and it is very true to it because Slum Village, as of today, they still release music, but it's currently J Dilla's younger brother was a part of it, but now it's just young RJ, who is one of the many great Detroit producers who furthered Dilla's like electronic sound, and like T3, who is one of the like original members, because Batin unfortunately passed away in 2009. Where it's very much it's one of the few hip hop groups that is similar to like one of those kind of bands where it's like they just found some new members and they're just like, fuck it, keep the bus going. You know, there's people's gonna check it out. And thankfully, it's not like other rap groups that do that where it's disingenuous, because one group that annoys the shit out of me is Cannibal Ox. A reason why people will know them is that LP of Run the Jewels founded the group. Well, not founded the group. He formed the group and he produced their first album. And after the first album, they all started beefing and disagreeing on stuff where it was a duo of rappers and LP. And then the duo at some point just broke up, where currently Cannibal Ox is just one of the guys who doesn't even rap over LP beats, doesn't have the other guy there, but he still is like masquerading as Cannibal Ox because his own solo name won't really get the tour ticket sold.
Yeah.
Whereas like at least Slum Village, it still has T3, who was there from the beginning at least.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From the beginning, and also it's like at least he has a bandmate to like make it not just a solo Slum Village, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I kind of also just went into already like why I picked these albums in particular, because one album that is one of the ones that Dilla released in his lifetime is Champion Sound, which is a collaboration album he did with the legendary Madlib. And it's a great album. It's like really cool. Basically, Madlib and J Dilla trade beats, and they don't ever rap on the same song. It's basically Dilla raps on the Madlib beat, Madlib raps on the Dilla beat, and back and forth until the album ends. And you get to even hear like some beats that were later used by Raekwon and MF Doom, actually. Like the famous Madlib beat for One Beer is also on Champion Sound, which Dilla does his own justice to that beat himself. Where if you want to get more familiar with Dilla as a rapper, it's definitely an album worth checking out. But I figured it would be more worthwhile to like have The Shining here, as like I think it's a better showcase of Dilla's production for his like solo route. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And well, I think these are going to be like the quickest way to show the versatility of Dilla, which is really the biggest point of this episode for me. I wanted to just go into some important albums that Dilla worked on before his debut album, starting with La Cabin, California, which is the second album by Pharcyde, who you may know for Passing Me By, which I think we talked about it on the Quincy Jones episode.
Yes.
Which, have you had a chance to check out any of the stuff that Dilla did here? Because he produced like a majority of the album, but not all of it.
I kind of like have listened through like once to a lot of just pertinent songs, like, you know, Pharcyde songs that he produced and Tribe Called Quest that he produced. So I definitely listened a lot to Run In. Yeah,
Run In is just great. I remember being shocked that Dilla did that beat, because I was like, I first heard that song in a Newgrounds animation, and it blew my mind that he was behind that, because it's a beat. It's a song that like is a classic, but you kind of forget who even made it. Where we're so lucky that like it was this group and this producer to explain why it is just the catchiest thing ever. And Dilla Time is full of just amazing stories about what Dilla's beats would do to people. Where I think I already told it here, but I'll tell it again. The like story of Running, where the Pharcyde members were already like having hella fist fights. They already all hated each other. Where Dilla coming in as the producer created tensions even more, because originally this album was supposed to be executive produced by Q-Tip. But Q-Tip, when he like, you know, learned of Dilla, he was like, you guys should work with Dilla instead, which they took as like, oh, you don't see us as important to work with. Fuck you, Q-Tip. When no, he was generally doing them a favor. Like they were the first group to really like have this exciting sound and enhance what they were trying to go for, where it made them better producers themselves. And like Running has those classic confusing Dilla drums, which I am not enough of a musical person to really like explain myself. Thankfully, the writer Dilla Time does a great job of it himself. Where if you want to read more into that, you can read it there. And there's also plenty of like write-ups that go into it too. But they're very unconventional. You can tell it just from like comparing the drums to Running to any other rap beat of that era. And one of the Pharcyde members tried changing it behind the back of the other members, which led to two of them having an entire fist fight over how the drums are supposed to be. Where while this was like the first album Dilla worked on, really, he was already creating such tension of people being like, no, it's correct. I don't give a fuck if it sounds wrong, you know?
Yeah.
Where it's the kind of talent that like you really, really want to fight for. And it's very much exemplified here.
It's 1995, and now that I'm older, stress weighs on my shoulders, heavy as boulders. But I told y'all, until the day that I die, I still will be a soldier. And that's all I told ya, and that's all I showed ya, and that's all I told ya. Calamity is ripping my sanity, can it be? That I'm a celebrity.
And like Beats Rhymes in Life, which Danny hinted at earlier, speaking of his work with a Tribe Called Quest, where he worked on 2 albums of theirs, Beats Rhymes in Life and The Love Movement. I don't really have much to say about Love Movement. It's like the last album of theirs before their like actual final album, We Got It From Here. And there's some cool singles on there where if you want just more Dilla beats in general, it's worth checking out, of course. You just want more Tribe, it's worth checking out. But it's fine if you're not going to make your whole day about it. But Beats Rhyme in Life, I would say, is one you should not skip at all. Because it is like an exciting entry in their discography because it's not like it's dark. It's not really like a Mobb Deep album, but it's very much them abandoning what made their earlier albums so sunny and like easy to go into, where like what made Electric Relaxation such a like hip song to listen to isn't necessarily found here, where even the brightest song once again still has like this dead air to it. And like Dilla's very like minimal jazz sound is like the thing that really like just brought that like thing into fruition here, where Beats Rhyme in Life is where the Ummah formed together, which is like pretty much a production trio of Q-Tip, Ali Shaheed Muhammad, and JD, which was his name back then. And yeah, it's great. Like Phony Rappers is one of the craziest beats I've ever heard in my life. And that's how I feel about a lot of beats he's worked on here.
Well, I did actually, just to go back to the Far Side story that you mentioned.
Yeah.
That was clipped in a Pitchfork posted an excerpt of the Dilla Time book. And Julius sent that to me. But actually, before I read that, I saw a YouTube video because I kind of went down like just watching stuff on YouTube. And of course, there's tons of people talking about Dilla on YouTube. And one guy in particular did a video about that fight story, which was pretty entertaining. And he also did one explaining kind of what technically makes Dilla's drums different. Because like the name of the book, Dilla Time, is literally meant to be like a rhythm, a time, like he basically created his own thing. And a lot of people assume it's because he turned off quantizing, which is what makes the beat notes that you input on the pad sync up to the rhythm. What he actually did was he tried to replicate the feel of a real drummer by moving it around, like quantizing it and then moving the quantized part. Or he would do like 20 bars of a loop rather than just 1 or 4 or whatever, like a minimal, like the whole 20 bars is all different, or like the live feel. And that's what made his loops feel different.
Yeah, like the beat feels alive.
Exactly.
Yeah. And like where one of the best beats they could really get familiar with of that style is Still Shining by Busta Rhymes, which, have you heard that one?
Yes, I did listen to that one.
Yeah, I might have put it on one of the playlists too, but like that one, I think just the drums, it's like my favorite thing to show any of my musician friends is that song, because they're always just blown away by the drums that he's given Busta Rhymes to figure out on it. It's like a miracle that is on that album. It's great. So great stuff.
I see my influence still shining. You with my ultraviolet skin cancer causing laser beam flow, then cause a riot. Oh shit, I'm gonna give you more and more flows that's gonna help you see who got the real raw. You can watch me rap for the entire 9 seasons. Cold-blooded flow that got you motherfuckers freezing. You must find your style, identify with your own profile.
Going further into like the other albums he worked on, he worked a lot on Q-Tip's debut album, Amplified, and
which features Korn, by the way.
Yeah,
that was pretty crazy.
Yeah, it really just shows how 1999 it is. I mean, Korn is cool. I liked Korn when I was younger. I don't know how much I really revisited that much lately, but I mean, the one song that has the like scatting is like one of the coolest music videos with the fucking bullet flying or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're on this album, and it's not it's not the greatest Q-Tip album, but it's still a Q-Tip and Dilla album, where it's worth checking out just because those two G's is working together is like gonna make any album worth listening to. Going from there, we got Like Water for Chocolate, which is Common's fourth album, and it is, in my opinion, the crown jewel of the Soulquarians. Like, I put it next to Voodoo by D'Angelo, which is as high as a compliment I can give an album. And for those who don't know, Soulquarians, they're a collective of rap and soul artists like Questlove, D'Angelo, Erykah Badu, Q-Tip, and Mos Def, and many, many more. And it was a place where you could find music with soulful substance at a time when rap was pretty much being ran by P. Diddy. And it gave way for the popular rappers of that time to be Jay-Z and DMX, who necessarily weren't the worst rappers. Like, honestly, I wish the pretentious rap heads of the early 2000s and late 90s could see who is considered the most popular rappers later, because they would be a lot more polite about DMX and Jay-Z, because these guys were not terrible rappers at all, you know? But they still, Soulquarians were still just there to, like, you know, bring it back to a very, like, soulful place, because that's where for them rap was at its peak. And Like Water for Chocolate it's just full of Dilla beats. Like, there's a DJ Premier beat here and there, there's some stuff by James Poyser, but Dilla takes the lead on almost all of it, and it's just some of his best stuff in the world. It's a mastery of that low-key jazz style where it was made alongside Fantastic Volume 2, where if you love those beats, you could find them even crazier here, and it's Common's best rapping. Like, I am a very complicated fan of Common. Like, he was my favorite rapper when I was younger, but as I got older, I just got less into him. But this is like the album besides B where I just fully enjoy it still, where I don't feel that much cringe regarding the style that he's trying to give off. Because the thing about Common is that he really wants to be like, yeah, I'm not like these other guys, but unfortunately that leads to guys like J. Cole. So just knowing where it goes to, it sucks trying to get into where the root of it is, because Common isn't really that different. He's just as problematic as any other rapper, regardless of how much he doesn't want to admit it on his music. But we're not talking about the raps. We're talking about the beats. And another fun fact about this album is that while this album is very, very progressive in its politics and stuff, JD would make beats all day, and then at nighttime he would just take Common to his favorite strip club, which, if you don't know that about Dilla fucking loved the strip club. Like, he would go there almost daily.
He sounds like he had a routine of just like getting up, making, I don't know, 5 classic beats in a day, or, you know, at least one before breakfast. And then, you know, showing it to people, having them like, because I was listening to Questlove talk about Dilla a bit on the What Had Happened Was podcast, which is a great resource for our podcast, apparently, where we could just cut out clips and just play them, you know. But he was saying like how he kind of had to, Questlove was saying he had to like be careful about like overreacting or calling Dilla a genius to his face, otherwise he'd get kicked out of the room or something. Be a little sensitive, like hold his excitement a little bit.
Yeah, because he to him, this was just what he was put on earth to do. He wasn't trying to be the best or nothing, despite he was at times fully aware of it, where he would be fully impressed if someone was able to like emulate his style or just even like build off of it. Where I kind of love that like he has that kind of difficulty to like work with, because it reminds me of just like somebody of the jazz greats. It's easy to listen to Donuts and then just assume Dilla is like a wise Yoda who basically never said a word in his life, but he is really just as interesting as these like jazz figures, where while you don't hear his vocals all the time, he has opinions and attitudes that are just as sporadic and eclectic, and kind of fun to hear what stories came out of it, you know? Where I really can't recommend hearing, not just reading Dilla Time, but if you can like find any clip of Questlove talking about J Dilla, it's some of the coolest storytelling out there. Where I'm happy that Questlove got to like spend so much time with him, because he's an undeniable storyteller. Yeah.
I mean, it changed the way he drummed like completely. Like that's pretty crazy to do as someone who's working with. I mean, I think J Dilla drummed a little bit, but obviously his primary thing was using the MPC, the beat machines. So to influence an actual, you know, to a drummer is pretty impressive.
Oh, definitely.
I don't want to say actual.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean.
We're going to get an MPC thrown at our heads once we walk outside. Here's your real drum, bitch.
I'll take the hit just if I could keep it.
Yeah. Oh my God. We'll be just chopping up our own podcast into beats. So yeah, that's generally all the background that if you really want some like more stuff to check out from Dilla before getting into the albums we're talking about, these are where I would say go. One last thing I would insist to check out. He didn't work a lot on the album, but Erykah Badu's second album, Mama's Gun, is probably her most like driven through the sound of Dilla, and he was able to supply 3 beats. But the one that you probably have already heard is Didn't Ya Know, which is just, there's not that many songs that are as smooth as this one. Like you can literally loop it for hours and just not want to hear anything else.
Yeah, I definitely checked that one out. It was insanely good. I love that song.
Just fucking wild. Where I really wish they got to do more stuff together, but life. So let's get into Welcome to Detroit.
Hey. Y'all niggas ain't ready for this. I'm for when you slipping if you ain't carrying shit. All my niggas getting dope, bitch, we getting it up. At the bar, sipping it till we spitting it up. Pimping and plussing, song when we get in the truck. Can't make a right turn without sitting.
Which is his first album. He did it for this label called BBE. I don't really know much about the label, to be honest. They were smart enough to be like, hey, this guy needs a fucking solo album. So I give them more props to anybody else. I'm trying to look at what the hell they have going on. Oh, they had DJ Jazzy Jeff on their thing. And Pete Rock. Pete Rock is a significant influence for Dilla, where it's cool that those two got to collaborate every now and then. Like they both did the beat Once Upon a Time on Fantastic Volume 2, which has like this really cool xylophone addition to the sound. But and they gave him an advance check of $75,000, which I could use some of that, but it's very, very low for an advance check to an artist in this time period, because rap was very much a moneymaker back then. And this album got completed in 3 months with the assistance of Kareem Riggins, who co-produced the album. And Kareem, speaking of like drummers, was another drummer like Questlove, who was very, very influenced by what Dilla was pulling off, where he's literally reinvented his own drumming style to like match what Dilla was pulling off with the MPC. Where something that was really cool for the album was that Dilla was very interested in like getting more into like live instrumentation, where Kareem took up a lot of the drum machine work and Dilla was more interested in doing like some of the live drumming on the album, where it's still not necessarily clear who's doing which on all the songs, but it's definitely something that's cool to know that they use this album as a way to get familiar with each other's styles, which is just one of my favorite things about Dilla's work and his music is how much he loved fusing his styles with other collaborators who admire his stuff too. Because when the musicians like each other, the music they can make together is just better than the opposite, to be honest. So this is where you will get to hear Dilla rap the most on an album. And also you get to hear his very underrated singing ability, just like on the cover Think Twice, which was actually pitched to have Erykah Badu singing the vocals, but JD didn't think that we were worth the trouble, which if you know anything about Erykah Badu, he's definitely right. Where honestly, it's kind of funny that they're both figures that like you have no idea what's going to happen when you walk in the room with them. Because one of my favorite Erykah Badu stories is J Electronica posted Happy Mother's Day to my baby mama Erykah Badu. After this photo was taken of us, she stabbed me in the face with a steak knife 15 times and I needed 57 stitches. And then Erykah Badu, all she did was comment and laughing emojis. She didn't say if it was true or false. She just like, which I'm assuming that's how she laughs. And the overall sound resembles the soulful yet bare drums at the forefront that he was cooking up throughout the 90s, but there's some fun outside influences that show his interest in world music on songs like Brazilian Groove, Rico Suave Bossa Nova, and African Rhythms. And this is also the first time where JD starts referring to himself as J Dilla, which confusing stories on where it came from. The CEO of BBE claims that JD told him that it came from Busta Rhymes, which would make sense. J Dilla sounds like something that Busta Rhymes would just say out of nowhere. But Kareem Riggins claims that it was Common who gave him the name, who also kind of sounds like someone who would just say J Dilla off rip. So it really depends on who you like more, who you want to be the one who claimed it. But it makes sense that it was either those rappers who gave it to him, to be honest. So this album is full of Detroit-centric talent. As in the title, it's very much Dilla trying to showcase the like sound that was going to be in the city, despite it becoming, Detroit, while it was in rap history for as long as any other like region, it was never ever on top. Even when Eminem was the biggest fucking rapper in America, he didn't really like give much room for other Detroit artists to like give off that hype. Like Rest of 5'9" wasn't also going platinum, and D12 was only going platinum because Eminem was on their record, you know? So there wasn't really much room for Dilla and his associates to like get anything from that fame, which is why this album is great to showcase what else was going on in the city beyond what Eminem was doing. Where you got Dwele, who I'm not sure I'm saying his name right, but he's a guy who appears pretty often here on this episode, who is famous for giving the hook on Flashing Lights by Kanye West. And he doesn't just sing, he plays the keys, brass, and bass for the songs that he utilizes live instrumentation, where the dude is just real versatile with what he's capable of. And you can just like assume it must be a full band working on these songs, but it's just Dwele doing multiple sessions, it seems.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned earlier, Elzai, one of the most talented rappers come out of Detroit, gets a whole song to rip up on Come Get It. And you get Frank and Dank, who Dilla would work with really often. Like they were guys who would just be referenced all over his lyrics and got a lot of his beats. Where if you ever want to just hear the beats that JD, it sounds like he was inspired by his visits to the strip club. Frank and Dank got a lot of those beats. And the song that they get on Welcome to Detroit feels like something that would like function more at a party than like at a hookah lounge. And there's Hodgepodge and Lax, who I don't know much about personally, but they had huge reps in Detroit, so they provide more of that local style. And last but not least, Fat Cat gets an entire song that's named after him, featuring Fat Cat, and he just kills it. Like, the dude is just phenomenal at this thing. And at this point of rap, like, what was this, 2001? Producer rapper albums were already enough of a thing where this album gets the benefit of showcasing an artist that wants to show his range beyond making beats, which wasn't really that common. Like Lord Finesse, Diamond D, just to name a few producer rappers who made plenty of albums themselves. They were just trying to showcase themselves as the best beat maker, whereas Dilla, it seemed like he wanted to show his artistry more than anything, that he was like more than what he could pull off on the MPC. And it works out. Like this album has a significant sound that is very distinct to itself. Like there's not really that many albums that I feel like captures that smoky nighttime vibe with such great artists in their prime. It's just really cool to hear more of Dilla's rapping. And like, I feel like not that many rappers were able to figure out how to make a Dilla beat work better than Dilla himself, where he was always finding pockets that not even like Common could really figure out.
Yeah. An interesting note in that vein, like Questlove was saying that some of the songs on Fantastic Volume 2, they started with a cappella raps and then J Dilla built the beat around the raps. Like, I don't know. I'm sure he didn't stick with any one method for the length of his career, but that's just where he's coming from. He's coming from like, let's focus on the raps and then I'll make something crazy that matches the rap. So like that's the headspace he's in with his rapping and beats, which again, I can't stress enough, like his rapping is so good. Like that was the biggest surprise that I had going into this, was like finding out, oh my God, I love his rapping.
Yeah, like it's very unique because I feel like what's really cool about his style is that like it's not really trying to like follow the rappers that he likes. He very much was trying to keep that originality here as well, because Pharrell, he sounds like wherever Pharrell is featured on a song that he produced with a rapper that he made it for, he's sounding like that rapper. Like on Drop It Like a High, he sounds like Snoop Dogg. On Mr. Me Too, he sounds like Pusha T, which is fine. Pharrell is really good at his copycat ability of working with those rappers in that way. Whereas Dilla, it's like what I said earlier, it's exciting to see the beat through his eyes with the way he raps on them, because he probably did do it in that way for these as well. Like he was like, yeah, I want to rap on like this, so the beat's going to sound like this, you know?
Yeah, and making samples come in and play with the raps and, stopping the beat at certain times. So it's very, they're very intertwined in a really good way. Like they're so cohesive, the rapping and the beats. And
oh, definitely.
Just to give my general thoughts real quick on Welcome to Detroit, I totally agree with that, that smoky nighttime feel. Like I read something that maybe informed my opinion on it, but in the Pitchfork review, it talks about how in the liner notes, the intro, which that Pitchfork review goes like deep into just the first two notes of the intro song, which is titled Welcome to Detroit, obviously. Like apparently he made that the day before he turned the album in, that intro. So I just kind of felt that feeling throughout the whole thing. Just like, I was brought back to those college nights where I'd be up till like 4 a.m. and working on a project. But like for some reason, as tired as I was locked into whatever project I was doing. It was like my most motivated time. So that's what this overall felt like for me. Just like you're in the middle of the night, you're locked in working on something, and you're also having a little bit of fun with it. So
Yeah, definitely.
like specifically that "Come Get It" loop, that like, so I don't know. It was definitely a visceral feeling throughout the whole thing.
Oh yeah, just like a lot of like melodies that can get stuck in your head. Where were some of the other songs that stood out to you in particular?
Well, let's see. I I can give you my thoughts on my first listen. So in order to keep track of all these songs, I wrote just at least a line about each one for all 3 albums. So I can, if you reference one, I have at least something to say, because there's a lot to parse through, plus all the other tracks that are not on these albums I listen to.
Yeah,
but,
definitely.
I'll go ahead and say possibly my favorite beat on the album. I think you, in your notes, you said you had a favorite that was different than mine, but I think mine is Beej and Dem Part 2.
Beej and Dem is sick. Like I put that one sounds like something from Fantastic Volume 2.
Yes, I totally hear that. And his rapping at his closing verse, and where he references SMPTE time code, which is just something that I deal with in my editing job. Something says we simply do, but it also sounds like something about you getting them in line, like SMPTE do.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It's just cool.
Yeah, no. Yeah, no. It's kind of fun to have a guy who also isn't scared to like include what he thinks about producing inside of his raps as well.
Yeah. And we can kind of lump in all the kind of curveball tracks like, Rico Suave, Bossa Nova, and African rhythms, where he's just flexing his versatility. And also, I probably include Think Twice in that too, because it's like a pretty much a straightforward-ish cover on a hip hop album, which is just not something you see every day.
Oh yeah, especially not now. Like no one.
Yeah. Well,
really
unless you count
do that.
like basically parodies, like Jelly Roll and Machine Gun Kelly have like a parody song of Country Roads.
Yeah, which good for them. I hate that I not know that now, but
yeah, you're welcome. Lonely Road, take me home.
I kind of like forgetting that Jelly Roll's a thing until I have to talk to Danny again.
I'm being pushed it. If y'all have to suffer, you do too.
But Think Twice is definitely like a kind of song you don't really hear that often on albums like this, where to make that the second song, it kind of, and for BBE to even allow that, I love that like Dilla was very, very lucky with the labels he got to work with. They were never like trying to force him to follow whatever was on the charts. They were excited by his originality, and they were just excited to like give him the room to push it even further.
Right.
Where this album and The Shining is like no exception in that regard.
Yeah, because it sounds like this result wasn't what they were necessarily expecting, the label. They were expecting just a straight up, beat tape, essentially, or,
Oh yeah, but whenever he took a step further, they were just like, fuck it, he's a genius. We're gonna just hope for the best, which it didn't. You could kind of expect how the sales went for Dilla in a lot of his lifetime. He rarely ever charted as much as like anyone this talented should. But once again, it just wasn't really the intention at all, which is fine.
Yeah, you can live in that space. I mean, I don't know if that, like, it seems like even the classic, hip hop acts that we love, they had to have a single. They had to get on the radio at least, even if they wanted to experiment and stuff on the albums. Like I'm thinking like De La Soul and stuff. They had to have a radio hit. Like that was that was kind of a requirement if they wanted to be able to do what they wanted to do. So,
which like the single here was Pause, which has like some of my favorite drums on the album. I love a thing that like Dilla does a lot here, all the way to The Shining, of the call and response with like the hook or like the sample, which just works really great here. And I get why it's a single. Like if you heard this in a club in 2001, you would just fucking get up and just throw whatever money you have in the air.
Yeah.
But it's a great, great debut album that just gets to showcase its versatility.
Real quick, I just had one more note I wanted to get in there. The last song, One, I feel like it's worth mentioning that it closes by shouting out all these people that he loves. Like, just current rappers, and I think even Dave Chappelle gets mentioned and stuff, which is something that also happens at the end of The Shining. Well, spoiler
yeah,
alert,
like
but
Dave Chappelle was he's unfortunately a completely different celebrity than whatever he was in the 2000s. So it's weird talking about him in this way because I'm sure for a lot of young people who make their journey through the Soul Aquarius, they'll be very shocked to see how involved Dave Chappelle was. But like, he was their biggest champion. If it wasn't for Chappelle, most audiences wouldn't even have the chance to even understand the roots, understand Black Star, understand Dilla even. Where Chappelle's show, most of the performances on there were Soul Aquarian acts, where I think Kanye West even got his first live TV performance on the Chappelle show. And as early as 2001, Chappelle was just hip to it, and they loved him, and he loved them back. And yeah, that's particularly why he gets that shout out, because he did his work, you know. And one of the funnier shout outs on that song is In Sync, which you would think that like this means Dilla did like a remix for In Sync, which there's like a great story in Dilla Time where I forget who it was, but like one of the members of In Sync was friends with a friend of Dilla, and he was a fan of Dilla, and so was Justin Timberlake. So they were always like, "Yo, if we're in Detroit, you should take us to Dilla's place so we can like, you know, try to put something together." And Dilla would purposely just ghost them just to be like, "Yeah, I ghosted In Sync, fuck them." Which is like just another piece of that personality that I love. That's just like, why would you do this? But also I'm like, you know, I gotta get it.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
It's, where I think it's just funnier that he even bothered shouting him out, because that's all that came out of that shout out. It's like, it's just him twisting the knife of like, haha, take that, Timberlake. You're never gonna have a remix by Dilla.
Well, he had the foresight. I mean, he is a prophet, and he knew that Justin Timberlake would have the DUI where he would say, "This is going to ruin the tour." So he's punishing him in advance.
Similar to Chappelle, it's like kind of crazy what celebrities become as time goes on, because I never really expected Timberlake to be such a punchline for our generation now.
Yeah. I mean, he had a long moment. He kept
a
it
long
going.
reign as the coolest white boy for a second.
Yeah. And then he did that Man in the Woods album. That's where he...
I think, honestly, I would say it started like slowing down with Suit and Tie. Like Suit and Tie, maybe his biggest song, but it was definitely where people were like, he's not that cool anymore. People were like, I love it. I just like the Suit and Tie. Like,
that was the last
like,
hurrah.
The split very much started there, where Man in the Woods is very much where it was like, yeah, none of us want this. Fuck you. But,
everyone cool left.
Everyone who was
which
like, is crazy because that's the album where he brings back Neptunes and Timbaland. Like, it's very weird that that's the album where it just was not a return to form at all for him.
Yeah.
But I'm glad he brought up that track, because it's one of my favorite things that rappers used to do. They used to just make the last track shout outs, and it's cool that he did it here. And unfortunately, J. Cole is the only recent rapper I can think of who did that on the album. So I guess I'll give some very rare props for J. Cole. So good to you. You can take that back to the Ville, as you say. So let's go on to Donuts, which is, you know, we already talked about it so much.
I'm reading here your notes, Julius. You said this is, here's where we do the Nathan for You style plan, where we call this the worst album ever made, so we get enough hate viewers to listen to our podcast. All right, so Donuts, it's like Dunkin' Donuts level of good. It's a donut still, but it's terrible.
Donuts, they should have called this super donut, like the super donut in the lunchroom that you would eat because you were a child and didn't know what an actual good donut was.
Yeah.
I don't know if you also had super donuts.
I don't think I did, but I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's a terrible snack. Yeah, donuts. I just don't really like soul music at all. Like rap samples that sample soul is just boring. It sounds old. Who cares?
Yeah.
We want to dance. We don't want to fucking feel like our grandma dying of AIDS. So, fuck donuts. side tangent. It's crazy that like that. I think it called Off the Record or whatever that freestyle show that goes viral with new rappers freestyling.
Mm-hmm,
You know what I'm talking about? Is it called Off the Record?
Is that where the mic
like
is hanging down?
Nah. Well, it does that, but it's inside of a studio room where it's green.
Is it called Off the Record or is it called something else?
On the Radar. On the radar.
Oh.
That's what it is. If you look up a video, you'll recognize the set. But
Okay, yeah.
what was it? On the Radar, just like Genius, they gone viral, so now they're trying to show off how much they're actually shitheads when it comes to hip hop. Where one video went viral, just this like, I don't even know if he's a rapper or a producer, but he's white. That's just the defining aspect of him is that he's white. And he goes on a rant just like, no one likes soul anymore. Soul has no room in rap. Like, who fucking cares? And it's just literally made to be clickbait. And I'm just like, I wish rappers had more self-respect, but rappers have less self-respect than even rock stars. So we're never, ever going to abandon a platform that gets us views. So, you know, you can literally say the N-word belongs to everybody. And fucking Billy Woods will even show up next week. So we'll move on from there. Donuts is the most popular album, as we know, by Dilla. And something cool for the sound editors and musicians that we all like is he pivoted towards creating his beats on Pro Tools instead of his usual MPC. And the big reason why he went towards that application was that allowed him to further experiment with sampling by utilizing techniques such as pitch correction and time stretching, which as an editor myself, I even started messing around with that stuff to try to make my own editing kind of weirder, where pitch correction is a very fun thing to mess around with if you are looking for something to make your edits a little fresher.
Yeah.
And, you know, he was basically admired by a literal entire underground scene. Like, if you were not a like popular rapper or producer in this period of rap at the point, you love Dilla. If Dilla called you, you would answer the damn call. Where plenty of figures during Dilla's final days, they would take him out driving to record shops of a variety to go crate digging. And the majority of the samples that were used on Dilla came from crate digging at Rock Ray Records in Silver Lake, which I actually got to visit a couple years ago on my birthday. Really cool record shop. I found some cool stuff there. And after a couple trips there, Dilla will play a beat tape for Madlib and Peanut Butter Wolf, who is the founder of Stones Throw Records, which would be the label that released Donuts. And they were both just astonished at these beats because they, similar to what we were talking about, how Dilla utilized quantizing. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, quantizing, I think.
Yeah. How do you utilize the quantizing to like make the drums feel live? These beats took it to a whole other level where they didn't feel like beats. They felt like transformative compositions that weren't really made to be rapped over, which, as I mentioned earlier, rappers would later rap over a lot of beats from here, but they just felt like songs. Like you didn't really even, like, you can listen to beat tapes. Like, plenty of people do it all the time now, but like Donuts just doesn't even feel like a beat tape. It feels like something closer to what the Avalanches are famous for, you know?
Yeah.
And Peanut Butter Wolf, he wanted to release the beat tape as it was. It wasn't necessarily the album that we know it is today, as it barely added up to 30 minutes, which I put as a side thing. It's funny that that doesn't matter anymore. Like, a label isn't going to be like, only 30 minutes, we can't release this. Yeah, like they nobody cares anymore. You could drop an 18-minute album and people be like, oh boy,
you could drop like a 90-minute EP, which is something that happened this past week, the week of recording.
Yeah. Side tangent, I'm going to try to figure out Ifto Kane. So I'll have some stuff to share about her on our next episode. But I'm excited to check out the EP. I don't like the stuff I've heard so far of her previous album, but, you know, maybe the EP is more what I want because it's supposedly very droney, and I love me some drone music.
Yeah.
But yeah, 90-minute EP. I feel like this started with Isaiah Rashad's a great rapper, but his first album is called Sylvia Demo. And it's supposed to be a demo. It's also supposed to be an EP, but it's basically an album where ever since then, I feel like EP is just whatever you want it to be now. It's really just
it's like
kind of
lo-fi.
annoying. It's not. It's like, it literally is.
It's just put it on whatever.
Definitions don't matter anymore. And I think the world is kind of worse for it, but who fucking cares? So
that's why we're here. We have to correct everyone.
We're trying to correct it, you know. So if you love the Good Music Show, just know we're fighting for music while the world is on fire and TikTok's about to get banned for some reason.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
By
the time you're listening, TikTok might actually be gone. So if you enjoy those promos, better take it to IG Reels, buddy.
Go.
Oh, God. Go. Fuck. So Dilla was definitely near his last days as this album was being finalized, and Stone's Throw, they wanted another J-Lib album instead, but they wanted to demand too much of him because, you know, Dilla not only was dying, he was also just as angry at people trying to demand something of him as he usually is. Mm-hmm. So they decided, fuck it, let's figure out this Donuts thing, where Jeff Jank, their art director, took up the task of editing Donuts into a fuller album while receiving approval from Dilla for every choice he made, where it's undoes the myth of like Donuts being crafted by Dilla on his deathbed, which everyone loves to tell that story. Mm-hmm. If you go to any song of Donuts on YouTube, the comments are full of people being like, wow, it's like he's putting his final message to his loved one in this song, when it's very like there's just no confirmation of that was the intention of Dilla. Dilla just made some beats that Jeff Jank edited into fuller songs, which shout out to Jeff Jank. I feel like he doesn't get enough credit for why this album is the way it is, because it very much is a Dilla album. It's not like to forfeit authorship from Dilla, but Jeff, he himself even acknowledges that Jeff Jank helped put this album together to the thing it is today. You know what I mean? Right. Where unfortunately it's not an emotional final message through beats. It is very much just an incredible album that has enough room for ambiguity to become that, if you really want it to be that.
I think like a good way to think about it and is like how the Soulquarians, their whole thing was like getting together and just jamming and kind of like coming up with ideas based on that improvisation, and then turn that, okay, we like this, let's make a song out of this. And essentially this is kind of, or like, you know, especially as Dilla was, you know, like deteriorating in health, he was just jamming by himself, and then he had someone to come take all that and then just shape it into something that is cohesive, has a beginning to end arc. And I mean, unfortunately, with the way it is, it's like ripe for people putting whatever they want to put on it and pulling their own interpretations, you know, especially with the emotional aspect of it. Because it came out, I don't know if you mentioned this already, he came out, 3 days before he died?
Yeah, it came out on his birthday. So
it
was 3 days before he died, and the story was very much as written, like Stone's Throw Records. I kind of just want to do a side tangent. They're a complicated record label and reputation now, because they were the label that housed Madlib. They ended up housing MF Doom, and they housed Dilla at the end of his life. But it's unfortunately another case of white vultures taking advantage of black talent, where Madlib himself will end up leaving the label because they didn't give him as much residuals he was looking for, or there was some like real shady contractual stuff going on with the copyright of his music, where he ended up leaving and making his own label, which is where he would drop his albums with Freddie Gibbs and his own solo album. And speaking of them taking rights from Madlib, MF Doom's family has no access to his rhyme books, to his final works as a rapper, because Stone's Throw, specifically Egon, who is like one of their execs, pretty much refuses to give it back. Like, they want to end up using that stuff to make more Doom album potentially. And when it comes to like how Donuts ended up getting his reputation of like his final deathbed message, that was also orchestrated by them for when it came to Donuts.
That's what sells, right? They gotta have
it worked. Like Donuts was his most successful album sales wise. It became a huge hit for underground heads. Like, it pretty much made Dilla into the name he is today. But it's just unfortunate because it doesn't just take away from the hard work Jeff Jank put into it. It forces Dilla and his work on Donuts to become something that it was never really meant to be, where the album is strong enough to hold on what it originally was supposed to be. Another great album by this amazing producer. And now it just has to be this like important thing to inspire others of like, you know, even near death, originality doesn't stop. When it's like, it is that, but it's not how you think it is, you know?
Right.
Because as a kid, I always loved the image of him making these beats on his deathbed. And there are beats that he made on his deathbed that you can check out. A lot of them are fucking amazing. Like hell. Once we're done recording, I'm going to play you the final. Have you heard the final beat he made?
I don't think so.
It's insane. I'll play it for you. It's honestly scary. Where he has like work that is available of literally with that story, but Donuts isn't that. A majority of these beats were made when he was still healthy enough to like, you know, live life basically.
You know,
yeah, so Jeff Jenks' work really should be acknowledged for this, because without him, Donuts would probably still be a really cool thing to listen to, but his contributions very much helped to become the album that we know for it is today. And another fascinating thing regarding it is that like all the song titles were also by Jeff, where is Detailed and Dilla Time, he basically would come by Dilla's hospital and just tell him the names that he had in mind, and Dilla would just either nod, simply say cool, or get like a whole chuckle out of it, where all the choices generally were Jeff's choices, but they thankfully got approved by Dilla to keep like at least his authority over the entire thing. Right. And Jeff Jank is a very, very talented artist, and Dilla wanted him to commission his own album cover, which will later become the alternate cover that you'll probably see for Donuts in a lot of record stores today. But since they wanted Dilla on the album cover itself, once again, to push their very, very weird marketing for the album, which it's only weird because it's just that they're making decisions without talking to a guy who's literally dying. And they take a still from his appearance in this music video for Push by Med, which is a really, really cool song produced by, I think, Madlib. It's very clubby. It's very weird. It's very cool. And Dilla's there in the club with him, and at one point he just looks down and smiles, and they take that still and they make it the very famous album cover of Donuts today. That like classic Dilla smile that people usually witness while he's making beats, where they said Dilla was at his happiest either at a strip club or working on the beats and being like, oh man, I'm doing some shit right now.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it's a symbol for him looking down to hell, and he's like, yeah, I'm going there.
For not giving Stone's Throws complete residuals.
Yeah, exactly. He was too greedy.
Yeah. Too greedy. Give the record exec some dough, Dilla. What the fuck?
Yeah, they're struggling
Sorry,
over here.
I don't mean to be too much of a hater. It really pisses me off because I really admire Stone's Throw growing up, where it sucks having to learn their vultures like any other record label.
Yeah.
But
I feel like, I mean, I don't know if we need to go on this tangent, but something I've been thinking about a lot is like, it's kind of a tradition at this point for, you know, rappers to like mention their record label. Like it goes back to like Dante Ross, like we talked about with Wu-Tang and stuff, or De La Soul, they said Dante is a scrub, stuff like that. And like I think about it a lot because that's comes up a lot on Doechie's album or tape or whatever, Alligator Bites. Yeah, and I'm like, do we really need to keep doing this? Like, I don't want to hear about the record label. Can we just talk about like them, like
where like I get that people are like proud of like, yo, this is a team that has faith in me. They're putting money towards my talent. But a lot of time they're just looking to exploit you. You're just another fucking name on their label lineup, right? Where you're not Sir yet, but you will become Sir,
right? Because it just
hopefully
feels like
Doechie doesn't become Sir, but I didn't think Sir was going to become Sir, as in just. He's just there hanging out. He's not dropping as many albums as he should be because he's a very talented singer, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah.
I don't know. It just gives me a weird feeling. I'm like, because I'm like, well, I don't know about anything like what they're doing. I don't want to make judgments because like they could probably be doing something bad.
And the thing is, like, the label would love more than anything to be the people who you assume are credited for what the talent is capable of. Like,
we're
I'm sure there's a part of, like, to go to movies for a second, I'm sure there's a part of A24 that is excited that people think A24 is a director that makes all these fucking weird movies somehow.
Yeah. We're the cool production company.
Yeah. People think The Brutalist is made by the same guy who made Uncut Gems, who is the same guy that made The Lighthouse, who's made Moonlight. Like, somehow these are one genre when it's just one distributor that is able to be a gateway for filmmakers who can't get like the big distributed companies yet, where it's frustrating and it's in music, it's in movies, it's in every form of art, where it's always just going to be a patron.
Yeah. I mean, the money's got to come
with the artist
somewhere.
creating, you know?
Yeah.
Just pigs. Anyway, so there's no rapping on Donuts, as we all know. So I would like to just bring up some cool uses of the beats from Donuts by rappers that Dilla himself was a huge fan of. We could start with Wu-Tang, who loved Dilla, and Dilla loved them back. A really sad but interesting thing that Dilla would do on near his death was that he would be having these conversations with himself with a man he referred to as OD, which his mother thought was him thinking he was talking to Otis, who is Madlib. But he was actually envisioning these conversations with ODB, who had passed away just a few months before Dilla did. And as much as it's sad they never got a chance to collaborate, Ghostface Killah is one of the many Wu-Tang members who used the beats from Donuts for some of his songs, where we have one for Ghost, which is literally I'm assuming a beat that Dilla wanted to make for Ghost, which once again, because Jeff picked the titles, we have no idea what was necessarily the intention. But either way, Ghost thankfully heard the message and used it for one of his best songs ever, Whip You With a Strap, which me and Danny had a really nice conversation about, because it's a very emotionally complicating song, because it's Ghostface detailing the abuse he faced from his mother, that due to being at the end of that abuse, he sees it as her way of like love and showing how much she cared about him. He saw it as necessary for himself to grow up, where he even shows some resentment towards children today who don't face that abuse, where he feels like these kids are softer than ever. Which, if you show the song to like anyone who is like currently younger than 18, they'll be like, what the fuck? I knew rap was fucking awful. They're normalizing abuse. But it's like, it's more a very like sad and intriguing perspective of someone who suffered abuse and still unable to like come around to realize how dark and unnecessary it was for their upbringing. You know, where Ghostface, there's not that many rappers who are as just able to paint a very, very, very specific picture through his raps, where it's a very like disturbing but still beautiful song where he makes the most out of that beat on there. And he also uses High for Beauty Jackson, which is just a really cool short Ghostface song.
Yeah, but yeah, that Whip You With the Strap song was just, absolutely flooring when I first heard it. Again, we're not trying to analyze the I think it was a conversation we were having where, or maybe I'm just conflating. We talk too much.
No.
Everything was on the podcast.
You're good. Bring it up.
But you're like how like 21 Savage, you got to make sure he's not lying about how many cars he has. You know, like obviously when you're rapping, you're stretching the truth. But you're pulling from real life at the same time. So it's hard to those lines get blurry. And obviously, like we're not trying to say like he's endorsing everything he's saying in the song, but just the picture he paints.
It's for me, it's a waste of time to rush to the finish line to find out if a song is endorsing something rather than like trying to like interrogate what the song is actually about and what it's doing.
Because it's about the conflicting feelings of like getting beat as a child to the point where you're peeing your pants and just like the worst picture you can imagine, like happening to a child that doesn't understand what's going on. All they understand is they're getting whipped by their parents.
And then to like get as old as like 30 and having your own kids and still not being able to understand that what you went through was traumatic and wasn't necessary.
And you still have that respect for the person that did that to you. I think he references his mom in the song, but because he like a one-off line shows that he's like I still respect you in a way. So it's just
I mean, Ghost has he has more songs than most rappers of like just being devoted to his mother, where it's a very complicated relationship that we're very thankful to have a rapper as lyrical as Ghostface to like make so much work from it. And Whip You With a Strap is no exception, where it's just great that Dilla was able to get that beat used to the fullest in that way.
I plucked the peas off my plate and poured juice in a nigga food, get beat. Then I run tell grandma, my mama hit me for no reason. She whipped me hard when I finished eating and felt the bell stinging. When I wet that bed, hit my drawers and start crying. When she felt that bad, caught another when I told her those the fake pro cads. I'm in the corner weaving and scheming, trying to block my head. Nowadays kids don't get beat, they get big treats. Fresh pair of sneaks, punishments like having seats. Back then when friends and neighbors would bust that ass and bring you to your mama, yo, she got the switch in the stash. That's back-to-back beatings.
And Bye gets reused on The Shining and also on Finding Forever for the incredible revision of it, So Far to Go, which we'll go into a bit more later. And Doom used Lightworks on his final solo album, Born Like This, which is such a fun pick because Lightworks is one of the many songs with Donuts that I'm like, I have no idea how I can even rap over this. And of course, Doom just shows, it's like a whole lesson of like, don't ever feel too challenged to rap on something. Just fucking go for it. And what I love about his version too, because Born Like This is Doom fans are very split on it. I love the album personally because like it's similar to Donuts. It's like a really fun final entry of seeing where Doom thankfully was able to finally put an album together and see where he ended up at for his influences, what he's interested in. And it's also his most grimiest record because alcoholism got so bad to the point where his voice just sounds so fucking like just scratchy and grungy, you know? And I don't know why, but like all over the album, he has like a guy who just sounds like a cartoon character who's like, are you little punks ready for this? And like that's all over the Lightworks version that he does, where I love it. I love Born Like This, but there's plenty of Doom fans who are just like, this is like embarrassing. You could skip it, but I disagree. My favorite use of a Donut song would be the Roots' usage of Time for their song Can't Stop This, which is the outro on Game Theory, which I believe is an album that there's a really great story from Dilla Time of like one of the last times Questlove visited Dilla, that Dilla gave them the sample to use for, I think, their first song of that album. And the album very much is very dark, it's very reactive to like how just unbearable America felt at that time in 2006. And it's the album by the Roots that's probably my favorite, and it's the one that I'm like, if you just think that Jimmy Fallon's house band, just this is what they were up to. They're making such incredible music. And Can't Stop This, it makes me cry. Like because like Black Thought, similar to Ghostface, just a one-of-a-kind rapper that I'm very thankful was such a huge fan of Dilla, where to hear his like love for Dilla through some of this incredible rapping over such an incredible beat, it just makes for a wonderful song. It doesn't take away from Time, because Time is able to stand on its own completely as a song, but Can't Stop This is such a wonderful accompaniment to it. Because one of the top comments on Time on YouTube is that this is just one of those beats you just can't touch. Like no one should ever rap over this. Where I'm just glad the Roots earned the right more than ever, and they executed such a great piece from it too.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you had a chance to check that one out. But
I don't think I heard that one. I heard some of the Roots Dilla, but I don't remember if I got to listen to
Did
that
you hear Dynamite? It's the beat he gave them on Things Fall Apart, which is the most popular album.
Yeah, that's the album I checked out. So I did hear that one. Yeah.
That was sick. I mean, it was during the like peak of Soulquarians, where honestly most of the sound of that album is very Dilla inspired, similar to like how Questlove was inspired by him for Voodoo.
Right.
Where if you like Voodoo, if you like Fantastic Volume 2, check out Things Fall Apart. It's gonna be very much one of your favorite albums.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in my notes, I very much want to try to like disregard Donut to be like, it's not that great, or not even that's not that great. It's just like I feel like it's not the best Dilla album, but it is a masterpiece. Like it's a perfect fucking album in my opinion. It's full of so much originality that like it takes my breath away whenever I listen to it. And you know, if no one ever bothers listening to anything else Dilla made, at least they got to hear this. Like several artists would be happy if they had an album that this is where someone stops at. They don't feel like they need to like go anywhere forward, you know, which fans definitely don't have the habit of, because as soon as an artist drops something, they'll a week later be like, yo, so where's the new shit, you know?
Right.
I'll give Dilla fans compliments on their restraint to somehow just stop here. And every song is just so unique, and it's full of just great pacing, where I would love to hear what the original demo tape sounds like, but Jenk's involvement just really results in some incredible editing that just makes these songs bigger and just more beautiful. I never really cared to like try to like, you know, find hidden messages or like, oh, don't stop, it's for his auntie or this or that, where Dilla Time does have like a portion of like family members with Dilla and friends of Dilla who feel like some songs do feel like messages to them, and that's like beautiful. I'm glad they have that for themselves, where I love that for them, where it's more annoying when fans think Dilla was thinking about in his basement or in the hospital of like, man, my fans gotta hear this. Like it probably wasn't the case, which, you know, not to burst people's bubbles. And that's just the unfortunate thing. It's that like this album is incredible, but it's so incredible, and it came at such a time in his life, like 3 years before he passed away, that it just overshadows everything about him, and it just turns him into an artist that he never really was and doesn't really need to be, because it just suffocates all of the amazing stuff that was around him. I've been listening to it for like almost 20 years now. Like I'm 28. I first heard it when I was 8, where it's an album that I'm probably gonna listen to for 20 more years if I get to go that far. So
yeah.
That's
cool. I mean, as far as like my just general thoughts on it, like I mean, it's a little like outside of my wheelhouse, what I typically listen to for like an, you know, instrumental, you know, kind of like beat focused album, but it made the case for like why I should be into that.
Oh, so just correct. I was 10, so not necessarily.
10. Oh, okay, yeah. About the age where I got my first guitar and started to play that. I was 10, but and I think I mean, I don't feel like I'm speaking out of turn too much to say that like if people think this is like the only thing worth checking out from J Dilla, I think it's fair to say that because I didn't know the Pro Tools thing that he was playing around with Pro Tools to make these. It's fair. I think it's fair to say
which
that
I brought it up too because it is just a misconception. People think this album was made on an MPC when it wasn't. It was very much experimenting with new technology.
if you go on YouTube, you see people trying to recreate the beats on an MPC. So that's really interesting to hear.
Yeah.
But I just think it's fair to say, like, if he was able to continue on, he would be making albums that sounded completely different from this. Like, he wouldn't just be making donuts over and over again. He would be
not at all
experimenting and playing around. So
I dream often of what we do with Ableton.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, seriously. So, yeah. And I was just like completely blown away by this on the first listen. And obviously, there's like 31 individual tracks, right? Yeah, 31 total. So there's a lot of ideas and stuff that, and it like, I think that's indicative of just how he worked. Like that, like the most of these beats are just over a minute long. So like he would just make something and then like, that's it, move on to the next thing. And like, they got extended by, you know, rappers like adding their things to it and building it around the rapping. But like for this, it was just like, yeah, we're done with that. Let's go on to the next one, you know?
Yeah. Like no song really overstays its welcome, where if anything, they sometimes are like, man, I need to loop that. I need to be stuck on this, which I definitely did for plenty of these growing up, you know?
Yeah. I mean, there's just so many, just as far as the samples go, like syllables, like literal syllables that he pulls out that you want to hear over and over again. Like, you know, working on it. And I think it's Ad Rock saying the new and from the new style. And that's all over. That's been sampled like bajillion times at this point.
And what's cool about that is that he's not even like sampling it the same way as everyone else. He like finds an actual new sounding groove for it, where it's just cool that he wanted to try to pull that off with this sample in particular.
Right. I'm trying to think of other examples of just like those little syllables that are stuck in your head. I mean, the one I'm thinking of is "baby," but that's from The Shining.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like this, like one that I really love is like just ha. It's on I'm trying to remember. I think it's Airworks. Like I think it's Barry White or the Supremes, but like it has like just like the like looping.
Yeah.
Where it's like just kind of cool how it uses these vocal runs as instruments, basically.
Yeah,
and like constantly transforming. Like the beat doesn't really stay the same that often for each song, really. And there's a lot of like cool sound design going on here. Like I really love what's going on with the people, like that song in particular, because like the drums are just great, where it literally sounds like a prototype for Number on the Board. It's like a lot of like later minimal Pusha T type stuff, where when it like ushers in that sample to close it out, it's just like incredible pacing, incredible like just knowing when to like release, which I already mentioned him enough, but just like if Jeff Jenkins behind some of this pacing, he really just deserves his flowers for his work here, you know?
Yeah. Well, speaking of sound design, there was a note I had on Welcome to Detroit. The sound design is really good on that. Like the little interludes that come on at the end of tracks. Particularly the one where there's like it's just a song playing, like it's like in the room and it's like, you make me feel like dancing. So yeah, that kind of like texture he would add with, it continues here with just, this random songs that he would find. And supposedly he would listen to full songs. It's not like he was just like scrubbing around to find a good part. He would listen for the whole thing and then go back and know exactly where like the good part was.
Yeah, because like if you're a producer listening to this, please start doing that. I've been in the rooms of like producers who are working with samples, and they will literally just hear what they want to sample like in the first 30 seconds, just call it a day. When like if you keep looking, there might be a bridge that you'll rather use instead of just like using some of the first 30 seconds, because it's just kind of exhausting, which is why it makes sense on why Dilla could pull so much from one sample, where even though like like with a lot of the songs here that use soul samples, he doesn't just stop at like the one point he wants to use. He usually brings in a later bridge that he wants to use as well.
Yeah, like a good example of that would be Waves. Where it's like
Yeah.
a background vocal that he's making the main vocal, and he's also changing it from like the original song is saying Johnny don't do it, but he's changing it to say Johnny do it, you know.
Yeah, no.
And
Really,
also
really
it's like
slick.
doesn't really sound like they're saying anything if you're not really listening. You got to like listen really closely to hear what they're saying. Because it's a
Definitely.
background vocal. So
Yeah, exactly. The guy is just like on a whole other level when it comes to these beats. Where the thing I can give props to Stone's Throw for is wanting to release this, because most of the labels, if they had this beat tape play for them, they'd be like, "Oh, that's cool. This is gonna be a cool bootleg to have alongside all the other beat tapes." Where it is great that this tape itself got to become an album, got to be like have this like aura to it, because it deserves it. It's a very, very, very just undeniable, perfect collection of beats.
right.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite one, or is it like that hard to pick at the moment?
I mean, it's pretty hard to pick. I mean, I think Working on It, One for Ghost,
Working on it sick.
High, Bye,
yeah.
Last Donut of the Night. I mean, I could name about half these songs.
Yeah.
I'll try to look through to see if there's anything particularly interesting about any of the specific tracks.
I love whenever his ad-libs appear on a song, like on Dilla Says Go.
Yeah,
And, Lightworks, where I have no idea if he had those there himself or if they were added by Jeff Jank, but it's always just nice to like hear the voice of the man throughout.
Yeah. And somehow he got the sample to say "light up the spliffs" on Lightworks. It's just like,
Oh yeah. Like just it's like magic. It's crazy what he was able to like manipulate voices into.
yeah.
Which is why I do wish more producers would try to work with Pro Tools. Like I get that like it's just unheard of nowadays, but it makes sense that this was the application he used to make this album the way it is.
right.
So I feel like there's so many tools that you probably can't find on like Ableton or even Fruity Loops.
Yeah, and I guess now would be a good time to talk about like we've talked about his drumming, like the drum aspect of his beat making, but he also did a lot of bass work for other people and for himself. And again, these are all basically just magic acts where I don't really want to look behind the curtain too much as I would totally eat up like just footage of him working and just going through the process. I would eat that up, but it's also like, okay, if I can't have it, at least I have the magic. So like, who knows how these were put together is my point. But like on Gobstopper, you hear how his bass, the bass on that is just like the driver of the groove. And something that I read somewhere was that like he would use, and specifically with his bass playing, is like a back phrasing thing where it would kind of like, I guess, be behind everything, but also help it kind of catch up at the same time. And which is a technique that Miles Davis used. So I don't think it's like, you know, as much as like you could roll your eyes at it, like he is a jazz level of like experimenting, and you know, like Thelonious Monk, they even have him and Common have the song Thelonious. So it's like these are the people that they're inspired by, who are like playing with the structure of jazz, which is already, it's like this, you know, improvisational, hard thing to master, you know.
Like out of any rap producer, Dilla's really the one who feels closest to like the jazz artist that, you know, gave the library of work for these producers to build from, where it makes sense on why so many producers were excited that Dilla existed, because they didn't have to like look too far or go too far to be influenced on how to like, you know, be that innovative with the sound they want to work on. Well, I'm glad you brought it up, because like him as a bassist is very important to understanding like how much he was more than just a beat maker, which is nothing wrong with that. If you only make beats, that's cool. But J Dilla very much was someone who wanted to be just more than that as well. While he was happy to be that, he was definitely someone who like would leave the MPC and could like rock out on a live instrument if he really wanted to most of the time.
And he came from a musical family too. His mom was an opera singer and his father was a jazz bassist. So there you go. I mean, when you're surrounded by music, you're gonna chase that. I think you're more likely.
Yeah,
to.
no. As far as like I had this in my notes where I kind of would bring it up, but like a Geek Down, I've always kind of want to hear a rock band remake it live. Like out of like any song here, that just sounds like it would be so cool to just see if they could figure it out.
Yeah, definitely. I can totally hear that.
Yeah, where I mean, it'd be cool to just even see people remake this at all, which is why like there's a lot of like tours or like concerts of like, you know, orchestra plays donuts and this and that. But I
Right.
kind of just even wanted to see something way more low scale occur, you know,
Like
when
a
it comes to, like
five-piece
these songs.
punk band
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because
That would be
like
cool.
these should be standards at this point, if standards was still a thing, which they aren't, unfortunately. There's so much music that you could just fucking cover, copy forever, like Uzi Vert doing System of a Down for some reason.
Mm-hmm. Well, someone on YouTube has a video called Geek Down J Dilla Guitar Jam. So maybe he's doing it.
Oh yeah, glad that someone else is digging of it. In
He's
that
got
way.
261 views. So
All right, I'll be 262, and I'll probably
Yeah.
be his first thumbs down. But, look forward to that, Mister. We could talk all day about each song here,
yeah,
but I'd rather
So we're
give
going
more
to.
time. Wait, what?
I said we're going to, and we'll be here for another 4 hours.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Where
sit
you know,
back, relax.
there's so much about donuts you can already read online, and if you really need to know more, you can just reach out to us. Where we want to give more time to the third album here,
Yes.
The Shining, which is as written in Dilla Time, it is more Dilla's actual final statement, because a lot of the work that he made here was during his like final days, and it ended up having to be cut off due to like his like final hospital stays, where it was intended to be a sequel to Welcome to Detroit, titled Welcome to LA. When the name change occurred isn't really clear, but it still kind of like has a similar format to that one, where there's like several guests who take up songs that Dilla doesn't really even appear on as a rapper, but he's still working with the similar team of Kareem Riggins, who has returned as a co-producer, who also finalized the album for Dilla after his passing, and bringing in DJ J Rock, who is a really, really great DJ that you get to hear all over this record. And they had a fun meet cute that is detailed in Dilla Time, where Dilla was invited to a DJ show, and when J Rock learned that Dilla was in the house, he immediately just started pulling out samples that weren't really that well known that Dilla used, and then transitioned them into the beats that Dilla like turned them into, which just blew Dilla's mind, because it's like, one, how's this dude be able to figure it out? And second, how's this dude able to figure out that well? Where the story is known, J Rock became his tour DJ from that moment forward, which is like, you know, that's like the best possible way to get that job, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is like the 3-person team that put together a lot of The Shining, and it's mixed mostly by Dave Cooley, who is mostly known for being the engineer for Madlib. And Madlib is a huge influence. He appears here on Baby, and he's also the co-producer of Baby, where you could tell of Madlib's influence a lot on Dilla here, which similar to what he was able to do with Kareem Riggins. You get to just hear two geniuses who admired each other, pushing each other forward with these innovative sounds that they had. And a little bit more background on The Shining. Kanye West, basically in 2006, was the biggest rapper. He's changing rap for the better at the time, because right before Kanye, it was 50 Cent and The Game, and rappers who just necessarily weren't that interesting, weren't that original. I'm fine with saying that more than ever now, just because 50 Cent's been very annoying lately in the news, and I just feel like he's never necessarily been a GOAT. Like, if you have 50 Cent in your top 10, your Yankee cap is way too tight. Listen to a little bit, where it's just like Kanye very much was very good for rap to come at the time that he did. But Kanye is also, as I mentioned earlier, a guy who, without Dilla, I don't know what he would really become as a producer, because a lot of his like drum patterns were very similar, where he definitely advanced upon what Dilla was doing and chopping up soul samples, especially by introducing Chipmunk Soul, where Dilla had an interest in responding to it with making his own beat tape that would become a very like shared bootleg that would be known as the Motown tape, which Questlove even got Dilla to admit was very much a response to Kanye trying to take his title, where they even got to like work on two of Common's albums separately, but beats next to each other, where those two albums are kind of fun to see like how the beats are similar and different and what ways they are, you know?
Yeah.
If you like Kanye, you should definitely check out The Shining, because The Shining very much is kind of a response to what's going on there, and also advancing upon what Kanye was influenced by. Oh, another cool story with Madlib's engineer, Dave Cooley, was that he considered Dilla to be Yoda, which, like, I know I said earlier, you can't really look at Dilla as Yoda, but the way he describes it, it makes sense why it sounded that way, because they would be like, for the making this album, like Riggins and J Rock, they would be like, oh, do you want another take? Are you sure? We can do another one if you want. And Dilla would be like, nah, I'm good. And then as soon as they would head out, he would just tell Cooley, like, all right, take 3, and then take this part for take 7, and take this part for take 2, and then that's the song. And he would just like already know without any notes of just what takes he wanted immediately.
Wow.
And that is where the final pieces would come from, you know, where he's not just a producer, man. He was just literally just like he could see the future, I guess, and what he wanted the sound to be. Where I'm sure a lot of engineers wish they could work with an artist with that much like foresight on what they're looking for.
Yeah, like a clear
Rather than being
vision.
like, I don't know, man. Take 19 might be it.
That's like, that's something that a lot of artists have a problem with, is like they don't know what's good about themselves. But I don't think that J Dilla had that problem at all. He knew exactly what was good about himself.
Absolutely. Very, very, very confident. And as I mentioned earlier, Riggins finished the album for Dilla, where it was one of his final requests, where supposedly he even gave it to Riggins like 3 days before he passed away. And it's why it's difficult to look at this like any other posthumous album, because it's not like they just took Dilla's work and then just changed it without thinking about what he was thinking of. Because thankfully, a lot of songs here were already final mixes by the time Riggins was brought in, where his help was definitely just like adding like maybe some harder drums and bringing in the guests that you hear all over the album, who were some of Dilla's favorites, like Guilty Simpson, MED, Common, D'Angelo, and Black Thought, and others. It's very much still a Dilla album, where a lot of people ignore it because it is presented as that, when if you checked out Donuts, you should just check this out as well. Like, there's nothing stopping you, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, supposedly the word on the street is that it was about 3/4 complete, which I don't know how you measure that. I mean, that's obviously just a guesstimate, even if you knew exactly the whole process. But either way, it's pretty, I guess it's agreed upon that it was mostly complete, over halfway.
Yeah.
So again,
exactly.
just kind of putting the finishing touches on it and piecing it together.
Yeah, and it's very much a lot of what Dilla was interested in near the end of his life, where it's just like, I hate that it has to be dismissed as that, because it is very much stronger than what most posthumous albums are, and you can still get that genius going on there too. And also, Kareem Riggins is just one of the best producers out there, where just check it out, because to have your final album finalized by a guy like that, you're lucky.
Yeah.
I don't think I brought up that he's the guy who made the beat for 30 Hours. So if you like 30 Hours by Kanye West, check out The Shining. But yeah, the players on the album who appear throughout, we got Busta Rhymes, who is there for the intro of Geek Down, which I'll be honest, like, I love Geek Down, but I don't blame any Donuts fan who is scared of this album as soon as it begins, because Geek Down is easily one of the craziest things Dilla has ever made. Like, it's literally bees swarming over this insane Detroit synth while Busta Rhymes is yelling at you.
Yeah.
This shit is a fucking emergency. Evacuate the fucking premises, bitch. There's a fucking fire going on in here, alright? J Dilla. That's the motherfucking fire right there. Evacuate the fucking building before you get burnt, bitch. Get the fuck out the building. Busta Rhymes tells you what it is right now. J Dilla, let's barbecue these motherfuckers. Yeah.
I love it. It's amazing, but a lot of the like complaints as soon as it first came out was like, the intro, I don't know what the fuck. This is terrible. Like, you know, like, because it's so different from Donuts. It is. It's radically different from most of his stuff, you know?
I mean, yeah, like, I think, I don't know if you checked it out, but you didn't send this to me, but I did look at the Pitchfork review of this album, and they were like a little confused by it as well, whoever wrote that. And I mean, come on, like, this is fun. And it builds just so well. And again, like, all three albums have like a really thoughtful way of introducing the albums. And I would say like Donuts and Welcome to Detroit have two songs that are like acting as intros. Like literally on Welcome to Detroit, he's like introduction, and then the next track is You're Not Ready for This. You know, which you're not. You aren't. No one is. You know, if you say you're ready for it in the first time, you're not. You know, that's just true. So similar to here, you're not. You know, this is just like the club. You know, like you got to know what you're getting into. So
it sets the stage in a way that no one could imagine this album would need for itself. Where I'm very grateful that this is the intro, because it is very much what people online call pleb filter. Like, if you don't get it, you're just don't even bother continuing.
And very different from the track Geek Down on Donuts as well. I mean, they're both...
they share a name. I don't know why or how that happened, because like I said, Jeff Jank supposedly came with all the titles of Donuts, where I'm not sure why that happened.
Maybe it was just a phrase that like Dilla liked or something like that. I don't know.
He did have phrases like that. Like, what's funny is something he would tell Dave Cooley during the mixing for this album is that he'll be like, bring a few baby hairs down, one baby hair forward, where he had like weird phrases like that always just made sense in his direction.
Right.
So it could be, like you said, one of those just things he had that he just always said, geek down for some reason, you know? But Busta Rhymes is here, who just look up anything Busta Rhymes did with Dilla and you'll find like just some really cool rap music that's just not talked about enough. Like they thankfully got to do a lot of stuff together. And I, like if Dilla lived long enough, we probably would have got a full collab album between the two. But like the songs that we got either way, it's just a really great chemistry where I'm glad they had each other, even especially when Buster was like as big as he was, because Dilla was like had at least 1 or 2 beats on each of those albums.
Wouldn't Diligence be considered a collaboration album with Busta Rhymes?
Oh, I don't know this one actually.
Yeah, I came across it. I haven't listened to it, but it's I don't know the story behind it. So, but looks like it's all J Dilla and Busta Rhymes with some guests, Q-Tip, Raekwon. Ooh,
oh cool. Yeah, it's a mixtape of I remember this now.
Okay,
it's a mixtape that Busta did to like devote to J Dilla. It's cool.
Okay,
like I've heard it a while ago.
Okay, but yeah, this is definitely like I've heard just some Busta Rhymes, and each thing I hear I like a lot, but I never did the deep dive. So I think, just anything that J Dilla produced on Busta is a great place to start. Yeah,
and we got Common, who is here again. He's on E equals MC squared, which I just love that song. It has some of the crispiest, hardest drums out there. It's just a really cool beat where it's just like if Geek Down doesn't sell you, just keep listening. And E equals MC squared would just bring you all the way back to it. It's just such a great song that I think really makes you familiar with what Dilla was interested in, of like merging that Detroit and LA sound together. And Common does his thing on it. He pulls out his party angle and stuff, which really works out. And he's also on So Far To Go, which reuses, I believe, the beat Bye from Donuts. And D'Angelo's there, who gives like just an incredible hook. And which some people don't know is that the piano playing at the end of the beat on that song is D'Angelo himself, where he just did a whole 3 to 4 minute piano solo, and it's gorgeous. It's like it's like probably my favorite way of just like an artist being like, I just want to like give something extra to this Dilla beat because I love it so much, you know. And it was added after Dilla's passing, where Riggins just truly believed that Dilla would just like not even want to cut a piece of it. It's as live as it was for D'Angelo playing it, which I think is like just a great addition. And what was it? Guilty Simpson is here, who is like probably like my favorite rap name ever, because as we all know, I am obsessed with OJ Simpson culturally, and Guilty Simpson is just such a good rap name. Like it's so good. And thankfully he's also just
gave that too much thought, but now I am, and it's great. Yeah,
it's a great name, and like
I just took it at face value.
yeah, and he is just also just one of the dopest MCs to do it. Like he's one of my favorites, and he has a lot of Dilla beats on his own solo work where that stuff is worth checking out, especially Why I Must Love You, which is one of Dilla's more synthier beats, which is just so fucking fun to hear him in that kind of pocket. And he's here on Baby and Jungle Love. And he's the only Detroit MC here besides Dilla, where he helps become the vocal fusion of that Detroit and LA style that Dilla wanted to perfect here. And also just Baby is just some of my favorite verses. I love the opening line so much he becomes in with, where it's just good stuff. And the rest of the guests are great. Like Pharrell Mock does his thing on Love. Dwele does his thing on Dime Piece, which is actually one of the final songs recorded for this. And I kind of like Dime Piece. I get why people wouldn't like Dime Piece, because it sounds really weird for an R&B song. But like Dwele is singing on it like how a Dilla drum sounds, which is why I kind of like it. Because like he sounds very stuttery and stilted, but still has that soul there that's present. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I definitely like that song a lot.
But yeah, no, where it's an album that I really love. Like I love most of the things that Dilla got to release, but this album, it's like full of just the peak of originality that he was able to get to near the end of his life, where like if you close your eyes, you could just see all of the things that got you into Dilla being like just pushed to the furthest possible spot it could be taken on this album here, where it's an amazing final statement, and it's also just an amazing showcase of the golden team of Riggins, J-Rock, and Cooley being led by the genius Dilla himself. It's totally worth a listen. I feel like it's terribly underrated. And yeah, what was your thoughts, Danny?
I mean, I think this one I was like most able to sink my teeth into it and really kind of like I guess I was the most opinionated about it. And I thought I was going to have a little bit of a similar thing where you weren't a huge fan of one of my favorite Bruce songs, Tougher Than the Rest, with So Far to Go. Because I had a moment where I was like not feeling it. Like initially I liked it, but then I kind of got like, you know, maybe it was just like all the listening I was doing, I was kind of bogged down by that long song, and I was like, maybe it's like I wanted more, but I you know, careful what you ask for type thing. And then like first two things happened. Well, one, I actually listened to the piano playing because I think in previous listens I just kind of like let it gloss over. I was more focused on the drums, but then I like made an intentional effort to like listen to that piano solo because it does. That's why it's that long. Because I'm glad you mentioned that it was D'Angelo because I had no idea. 'Cause I don't think it's on the credits, but unless I missed it.
Yeah.
But, and then I also heard the version on Common's album, which I don't know what it is. I think just the way they put it together on Common's album, it clicked for me, and I think I like that version a little bit better.
I need to check that one out. I didn't realize there was a difference.
It's a slight difference, and I think part of what it is for me is the okay, this is just like saying Picasso, this painting isn't as good as the other ones. Because like the drums on the Shining version of it are pretty static, I guess, which is just like a given for most producers. But for J Dilla, it's obviously like you're wanting that loose feel. And I think the big difference is the hi-hat sound on the Shining version is like more. It sounds like a programmed drum versus on the Common version of it, it has like a real hi-hat sound.
Yeah. Yeah, no, which I mean they had different engineers where I'm sure like it's probably just definitely a case of that.
Yeah, and I think I like Common's verse on his album version of it better than the one that appears on The Shining because it's a little like, all right, buddy. We know you're.
Yeah, he's very horny.
Yeah, we know you're different. Although I did like the line, like, because like it's mostly I read it as mostly serious, but he does make the joke like how he like people say I'm conscious. Yeah, I use my head. So I did appreciate that at least. But yeah, overall, at first I wasn't feeling it, and then I realized, okay, he did a different verse on his album, and of course I'm not going to complain about the sampling or D'Angelo. Like that part I love it. You know, it's great. I love it. But that said, I thought just like the way it appears on Shining was not quite my tempo. If I'm using a I don't think it's actually a different tempo. Just to be clear, I think it's probably the same tempo, just a little bit different sonics. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But other than that, I'll say I'll move on from that. My like one criticism, everything else I just love. I mean, if I had to pick one song to only hear for like out of these three albums. E equals MC squared is probably my favorite across all three. So, you know, shout out to Common, who definitely does incredible. Like, I just like what he does with that one line where he's like, baby girl, you as young as the nice seams on tight jeans. Should have been Kahlua or ice cream, you know?
Yeah, no, it's really cool
great.
flowing on that fucking song.
Yeah. I mean, what else can you say other than talking about every single song? There's just all these classic Dilla style beats, and you've got On Love, you got the Curtis Mayfield with the Impressions sample. We must be in love.
And speaking of it, just because there's a lot of songs with the word love in it, Love Jones is a really cool instrumental that has like those classic Dilla drums that it's really cool to hear with this new kind of melody, you know, where it's way more full, but the drums don't even like take the lead, but they're still noticeable, you know?
Right. And you got that kind of like stuttering, hiccupy kind of rhythm that you were talking about with was it Dime Piece?
Yeah, where that stuff is still present. The like vocal manipulation is still here. Like Baby, if you hear the sample for Baby, he turns maybe into Baby, which isn't that impressive, but it is like kind of cool when you really listen to it because it's really hard to even notice how much he's like emphasizing that M to become a B somehow.
Right.
And like also it's just really fun that like it's that sample constantly comes in at the end in an even harder way to amplify where a line ends or begins as well.
Yeah. I want to shout out something that you had in your notes because you gave a few recommendations on songs to listen to show Dilla's versatility
yeah.
further. And the one that really, really, really blew me away, that was like almost like a breath of fresh air, was the Guilty Simpson song.
Oh yeah, Why I Must Love You.
Yes. Oh my God.
Yeah.
That was something.
So good. Yeah, I recommend the full album that comes from too. Like, "Oh to the Ghetto" is so slept on. It's a great album full of Madlib and Dilla and Oh No beats. Oh No is Madlib's younger brother, who is just as great most of the time. And like, but that song, I'm glad that you were into it, because I love that song, especially because it is such a different sound of Dilla. Well, I'm sure Guilty himself was so excited that he got to get that beat out of any beat.
Yeah, and then he also appears on Jungle Love, which is kind of like that garage rap sound where like the microphone's really close to their mouth and you can just vibe with it.
Yeah, and I also feel like it's like, because similar to like how some of his sound, his response to what Kanye was pulling off, Jungle Love reminds me a lot of like what Neptunes was doing with Clips, where it reminds me of a lot of like grinding and their more minimal beats. And it's just like, it's real catchy. It really just bangs all together.
Yeah.
And
I definitely hear that comparison.
yeah, where as you brought up like your favorite song across the 3 albums, mine is probably Won't Do, which is like the outro here. Because Riggins, in a very heartfelt like part of Dilla Time, brings up that like he so badly wanted this to be the outro for the album, which is why he's glad it turned out to be that way, because it is just a showcase of everything that was great about Dilla as an engineer, as a producer, as a singer, which also was just great to hear on Baby as well, where and him as a rapper, where Won't Do is just such a like great song that I'm happy that like that got to be one of the singles for this album. You know?
Right. Yeah, I mean, yeah, his hooks are really big part of his songwriting as well. Like, even if they don't, they're a little bit more subtle than like say like a Method Man hook or something like that.
Yeah,
but they're always sticking in your head, and he's singing them really well.
Oh yeah, which I feel like people always are just shocked that he is that great of a singer. I don't know if you had a chance to check out Nag Champa. I think I linked that in my notes as well. The comment song.
I did
like
listen to that.
It's a hook that is like it's great, but it's even greater when you realize, oh, that's just Dilla doing his thing there. Like he really could have just tried being Drake if he wanted to be, but he's like, no, I'll just do it when I have to.
Yeah,
like, he was never trying to force it. Which producers love trying to be singers. Like you can hear Diddy so badly want to be an R&B singer when the guy could barely rap. Why the fuck did he think he could sing? Where it's kind of nice that Dilla got to like, you know, do that in his own way and have it like work out, you know?
Yeah.
But that's The Shining. And to bring it to a close, Dilla, after his passing, of course, led to a lot of like posthumous work where, as I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of beats in the vault. And as Danny even mentioned earlier, there's like that Busta Rhymes tape. There's quite a few tapes that rappers made using Dilla, like Raekwon's like very underrated sequel to Only Built for Cuban Links features a bunch of Dilla beats. And his legacy, thankfully, was like even bigger than ever thanks to Donut's success. And there was a lot of time during the 2010s where people wanted that sound on their record, where they want to like catch up on what they missed out on. And now he has the reputation as the godfather of lo-fi, which all I hope more than ever, it just gets steered more towards like the stuff on Fantastic and his other more experimental beats. You know, I would love it if like more rappers had chances to do collab albums. Like something that I'm excited about that I hope drops soon is Boldy James has like announced that he was given a Dilla beat tape where he's going to be able to make his own Dilla album, which would just be, you know, a dream come true for fans of Detroit rap. But I like Boldy James, but right now he's been dropping an album a month where I'm like, I don't know if he's missing out on child support payments, but he needs to like to chill out, because the albums are just kind of sounding very samey, where I hope the Dilla album is a return to form for what makes him like the standout rapper he is. Yeah, and yeah, definitely. Where all I hope is that when y'all check out these albums, it gives you a better understanding of why this guy is truly one of the greats, why his name deserves to be up there with Madlib, Kanye, Dre, and whoever you think are the best producers in the world. Because if your favorite producer was like active before the 2020s, they very much were a huge fan of Dilla, and that's very much something that they had in their mind as they like made their incredible beats that made them probably your favorite. And he could become your favorite once you like taking all this music that we're recommending. And you know, if you're a musician, it would make you want to be experimental yourself, rather than copying what he was doing, copying the methods and the ability to challenge himself, where you should challenge yourself too and try to figure out like, how can this beat sound less like a regular beat,
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm definitely like, I'm really curious. I want to give that Dilla Time book a shot. And because I think something that I guess doesn't really happen as much, and why, like you could just hear any Dilla beats and not fully understand his impact because of how he changed how other people worked and made stuff. I mean, like I mentioned with Questlove, like changing the way he thought about drumming is like, that's a big deal. So like, I feel like now I have all this info, and hopefully I'll get some more in that book. And then when I hear something that came out in like the early 2000s or like late 90s even, and I'm like, oh, I bet they were influenced by Dilla when they were making this or something like that. Like I can only can't even imagine what is out there that, he made that impact that, inspired someone else. So, and it's cool to hear that he was inspired by people as well. Like he wasn't, like standoffish or jealous or whatever.
Yeah, no, he was very much someone who was like, when he got to meet someone who was like a great to him, he immediately just wanted to be able to collaborate them more than anything.
Yeah.
Which is like refreshing for someone this talented, because like it's unfortunate that now all we have are producers who are very ego driven and terrified of competition, where they would rather sign someone to their label and not let them release anything while taking their best work, instead of, making each other stronger as artists, where Dilla had no interest in that. Like anybody he had the chance to collaborate with, he very much wanted them to, like, if anything, have more of the spotlight rather than taking away from his shine,
Yeah. And to all the producers that are out there currently trying to make it, I don't know, maybe I'm a little out of place to make this judgment, but I don't think the answer to making it is making your beats on a live stream where everyone can see exactly what you're doing. I mean, like that's
I didn't
something.
know that was a thing.
Yeah, apparently, I haven't watched much of it, but it seems to be like a thing where people just make songs on a stream. Which, if you're doing that for entertainment purposes, that's one thing. But if you're like, this is going to be your life's work, and you're just showing everyone how you did it, just keep in mind, like, part of the reason why people obsess over Dilla is because there's that sense of magic, because he didn't say much. There's a mystery.
He didn't need to.
Yeah, he didn't need to. It was all in the beat. So like, just keep that in mind. I mean, I'm sure that's how is like the only way you can make money is just being on Twitch. But so I'm not going to begrudge that. But if you're looking to make some inspirational, like legendary stuff, I think you got to kind of keep some stuff hidden under the veil a bit. So that's something I've definitely taken from learning all this new stuff that I learned from this episode, and it was a lot of fun. There's a lot of good music.
Yeah, like this has been honestly a dream come true, because I have definitely lived a long life of putting friends onto Dilla and most of them being like, I don't really get it. Have fun with that though. Where it's nice that I got to talk for 2 hours about it with a good friend of mine who wanted to like look into it as far as I do. Where I hope you all enjoy it, and I hope you all get to obsess over almost as much as I do, because it's music that's worth obsessing over. Like, it's don't even feel weird about obsessing over, because like we mentioned earlier, the greats were obsessive about it as well. Like one of the funniest details in Dilla Time is that when Dilla ditched Slum Village to go hang out with D'Angelo and Questlove, he literally described them as like as giddy as schoolgirls, be like, oh my God, Dilla's coming to hang out with us, which is like crazy to imagine just two of the greatest artists ever feeling that way about someone, which he let people take off their cool because he was the coolest in the room for them, And music's good. Enjoy good music.
And go have a donut or a cronut.
Yeah.
Or
I had a
croissant.
cronut right before making this. That's why I was burping my ass off.
Or a muffin.
Yeah, shout out desserts. And so we what do we have next?
I think our next one is a winter album. We got to get that in before the old spring solstice happens, or whatever it's called.
No. But yeah, where I hope by the time y'all hear this, the news is a little bit more settled. It probably won't be, because by the time you hear this, Trump is probably president. But we love y'all, and stay safe, and
Oh wait, why don't we react to it on the thing? podcast rip.
Yeah, it's from a podcast where Questlove speaks on it. It's never been officially released.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, I'm glad you're getting that Jordy Greep video pushed in your YouTube feed like I am.
I've already watched it like 5 times. I don't really like the song that much, but I think the video is interesting.
Yeah.
Like, he sounds like Lin-Manuel Miranda. That's my Jordy Greep tape, if anyone wants to know. And I'm a fan of Black Midi. I like Black Midi a lot. I just don't get the solo album yet, where maybe give it a couple years, maybe I need to get punched in the head a bit more, but I'll figure it out at some point.
Yeah.
It's not for me.
I like the one song that turned into a TikTok trend of people like dancing and then
Blues.
Yeah,
that was cool. I like Blues a lot. Like, because there's stuff in the album that I do like. Holy Holy is just not one of the ones I like, because it just, like I said, it sounds too much like Lin-Manuel Miranda, which I know is not the intention. And I know he would be furious if he found out someone even said that, because the fans aren't even digging that. I ruined it for Jeremy. Jeremy says he can't listen to Holy Holy without thinking of Hamilton now.
Yeah, he does sound like that, yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't even know much Hamilton, so.
Yeah, I unfortunately do.
Sorry,
thanks, Danny Vincent. You ruined my life. Thanks for listening. So we're back on for a second because we want to get Danny's live reaction to the last beat that Dilla made hours before he transitioned, where it's sampling a Funkadelic song, The Nation Eats Its Young, I think it's called, which just check out any Funkadelic album. They're like the best rock band ever. Like, just check them out. They're great. And so let's go ahead and give it a play.
Wait, before you hit play, just say play and then click play just so I know when it starts. Just for editing.
All right, I'm pressing play right now.
Perfect.
Can you hear it?
Yep. Oh my God.
Like, honestly, the craziest part to me is like that breathing going on.
I know. That's what I'm focusing on.
It's very eerie. But it's basically that for the rest of it.
Wow.
It's a really, really, it's a crazy, like, I mean, we thankfully don't have it that often where, like, artists' last piece before their passing is like identified and then released for the public to, like, consume and stuff, where whatever you guys are looking for with donuts of like, oh, what's Dilla's final message? It is kind of like cool that we have his last beat here, and it sounds like it's very much thinking about everything that he's worked on before, because it has that like classic, like the rhythm feels like it's like ending on itself, like it's regurgitating. With like that breathing going on, because like Dilla had like a lot of moaning, a lot of breathing used as like instruments throughout his like beats and stuff throughout his life, where the breathing here feels so intense that you can even like interpret it as like just like what he's felt like in his deathbed, where it's very I've always just felt like it's very eerie. Eerie's the best word for it to me,
No, it is. You said it was scary. I think that is just like inspired by pain. That's what I'm hearing from that breathing. Like, it's a struggle, but like the beat is just on point. So he's working through that pain. Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely.
It's intense. Yeah.
No, it's a very intense work of art where I'm very grateful we have it to like hear and listen to, because Dilla's very defined by what his last works are, where it's like, just like I said, it's cool to just even have this, because I never thought this was even available until a few years ago.
Yeah.
I need to find a podcast where Questlove spoke on it, because I have no idea. Well, actually, cool. The link is right here. I'll check that out at some point. But yeah. So that's the last beat. Not that much of an exciting like Jake Paul reaction, but we got it on tape. I don't know if Jake Paul does reactions. I'm just assuming because I don't know YouTubers.
Everyone does reactions.
Yeah, we should get into reactions. Let's get into the reaction bag.
It would be fun if maybe like we don't post them. We just do it on TikTok Live. That's the only place where I know people can play music without any punishment.
Yeah, let's do TikTok lives until it ends. Like let's have the longest running stream until it gets shut down.
We just need to get 1,000 followers real quick.
Let me hold 8,000 followers.
Yeah, we got a ways to go on that.
I don't know the name of the dude who just does the like that guy.
Yeah,
let's do this to him for like some followers. I don't even know what I'm talking about. It's the TikToker who never speaks. He's like a black dude, just makes like that one face.
Oh
he
yeah,
appears
yeah,
in
yeah.
Good Burger too.
Yeah,
and Rush Hour. He's in not Rush Hour. I said Rush Hour. He's in the new Bad Boys.
Oh, okay.
I can't keep my propaganda together.
Yeah.
But rest in peace, Dilla. Thanks for listening. And we out.
Bye.